Gentlemen, could I ask you please to take your seats if you would? We're about to start in about 2-3 minutes. Thank you very much. Well, you're very well behaved. Thank you very much. So I'd like to call the first set of panelists up to the stage so we can get them organized. I guess you know who you are, those involved in failure of startups, which we'll come to in a moment. But first of all, we need to do some introductions. So you can just take a seat. So my name is Mark Downey. I'm going to be moderating the panel discussions today. Okay, we have two interesting discussions today. One is on failure of startups, how, why, how to deal with it, what happened to some of the success stories. And the second panel discussion will be about the Central European startup ecosystem and whether or not it's reaching its full potential. But let me introduce, first of all, some people who are going to open our event today. And I will start with the CEO of WeXelerate, Avi Lifshitz. So Avi is the CEO of WeXelerate, Austria's largest innovation hub. Some of you may be familiar with it. An ecosystem builder, an expert in the international environment, and with a focus on innovation and digital transformation of companies. Avi, there's a microphone behind you there. If you want to grab that and give a quick introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Everybody can hear me? Yes, okay. So first of all, let me extend a warm welcome to Modul University. Naomi, I know it's been a long ride, right? But we're so happy that you're here today, kicking off the activities. Dr. Arch, thank you very much for everything. I think this match is perfectly. This facility has been a home to innovation since 6 years now. And this is the heart and soul of the innovation ecosystem in Vienna. This is why you guys are perfectly located here at this facility. In terms of today's event, I think just a couple of words why it is so important for us to talk about innovation and also talk about failing. And let me quote a study that was published a couple of months back from Accenture, a study that where 1,500 CEOs/decision makers globally were introduced to the questions about the future of the company. And 76% of those people who were interviewed stated that they believe their company is going to be radically changed within a period of 5 years. Now, 5 years in terms of corporate life is nothing, right? It's really, really quick. And the question is, will a bank be a bank? Will a manufacturer be still a manufacturer? Obviously, yes. But the way they're going to wrap their products, develop new services, and products, talk to the clients, wrap it with collaboration with others, going to be significantly different. Now, obviously the question is how to get there, and the only way to get there is by doing a lot of experiments. Right now, we in the ecosystem of innovation in the startup community are very familiar with experiments. We try very frequently stuff, and we fail quick. For corporate, it's not that easy, right? Failure culture must be established. Now, when we talk about innovation, we talk about new ideas. I think failing is part of that equation. And this mindset needs to be carried out. This is why this event today is so important. I'm very thankful that we discuss it more deeply. Thank you very much and enjoy this session. Thank you.
So now I'd like to introduce Dr. Karl Weber, apologies, the president and founding president of Modul University in Vienna.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And also from my side, a very warm welcome here today at this Startup Festival opening event. I'm a president of Modul University, which is a private university. We were so far only located at Kalmberg. Yeah, it's a very scenic hill in Vienna. Many of you probably know. Yeah, for us it is really exciting to be here for the very first time down here very close to the city center. We have a very exciting journey in front of us as we are new renters here in this WeXelerate center, and we're gonna emphasize very strongly and even more now on our very exciting entrepreneurship and innovation let's say, education, which we have been and we are focusing at Modul University for many, many years. Just to say you a few words about the university, we have 80% international students. We teach in English only. We have programs in international management, strong emphasis on tourism, sustainable development, and applied data science. And many of our students are really engaging into the entrepreneurship arena. Many of our students, also particularly the international students, when they go back to their country, they open a business very much into the service, let's say, industry. And so they really, really enjoy our activities and our education profile in this area, in this field. And I have to say, in 2018, we have started launching a startup hub at Modul University, which got a little bit interrupted during the pandemic, as you can imagine. So now this is really a new step ahead. A very exciting time to move with the startup hub here to the WeXelerate Center and to further develop it in the future. We have a fantastic team, I have to say, and in this regard, I really want to thank Professor Arch Sultan, who will be speaking in a second, and he will give you an overview of the program today and the panel discussions we are going to see ahead of us. I'm very much looking forward to all of this coming up. And if you want to learn more about our university and about our programs, we have also a stand in the back where you can find some more information about it. So enjoy the day and have an exciting time. Thank you.
And last but not least, for the introductions today, let me introduce a man who goes by the alter ego of the godfather of entrepreneurship. What a title. Author, writer, scholar, social entrepreneur, a leading advocate on the importance of innovation and entrepreneurship in economic growth and social development. 200 articles, wrote or edited 45 books, $5 million in grants raised, with 66,000 Google. Hello. Wow, even the microphone broke at those statistics, huh? So his research has been featured. Research featured in The Economist magazine, Financial Times, Asian Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, and CNBC. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Zoltan Acs.
Thank you for that introduction. And it was not easy getting here. This has been a long road, and it's a great day, I think. You know, when I was asked to set up this institute, I told a friend of mine, oh, someone asked me to set up an institute. And he said, well, there's so many institutes in the world, why would you need another one? And I said, that's a great observation. And it's true, right? There are probably 10,000 research institutes, think tanks in the world. And here's the answer I gave. There was a very famous economist named Ronald Coase who came up with a theory explaining why we need firms, or businesses. And what he said, the reason we need firms is to reduce the transactions cost of using the market. It's cheaper if we organize into firms. That was a great answer. And then someone said, why do we need more than one firm? Now, you know, if I was teaching, I'd grab this student right here and make him answer it. But if he started crying, you know, because he didn't know the answer, I'd go to someone else. But all of you know the answer, it's for competition, right? If we only had one firm, we'd have a monopoly, and that's not a good idea. But the real interesting question is, why do we need new firms? Let me just use the United States as an example. Depends how you measure it. There are like 5 million firms in the United States. Do we need another one? Can't the existing firms do everything? And the answer is no, right? New ideas need a new institution. It almost seems obvious. And if you apply that logic to research institutes, if you really want to solve major global problems, or at least think about them, it's probably a good idea to do it in a new setting. And so the idea of this institute is about trying to create another center to deal with some major issues. Now, one of those issues that has been around forever, right, is the role of entrepreneurship, innovation, the ecosystem, the role of startups, the role of cities, so on and so forth. And so the idea for this institute was to really have another vehicle to try to tackle some of these issues. The second sort of question then is, why Vienna? And that's really an interesting question. I have never spent much time in Vienna. I came through here a couple of times there and there, but Vienna is a special place. Everywhere you go in the world, you talk about Vienna, people have a positive view. It's a city with a huge history, a huge culture. It's played an important role in European history forever. And it's a city that sits at the middle of the East-West divide, and all the institutions of the world that are important have a presence here. So creating this new institute in Vienna is sort of a neutral way to try to address global problems without sitting in Brussels or Washington or Beijing. So that's why Vienna. What's our vision for this institute, right? It's a great question. And it's an attempt to bring together at least 4 countries to try to think about the future. And remember this, we know what entrepreneurs do, right? They invent the future. If you don't invent the future, it never happens. And so the 4 countries that are like major players in the vision of this institute is Austria, Hungary, Israel, and Germany, right? This is sort of the historical legacy of the 20th century, of great ideas, et cetera, et cetera. And what are we going to study, right? It's a great question. And you know what the answer is? I don't know. If I asked you, what's the major problem facing the world? This side of the room would say global warming, and I don't know what these people would say. But everybody has a list. If we really knew what all the problems were, we wouldn't be here. But we really don't. And so we want to think about how to approach this and bring people together to talk about the problems and then try to find solutions for these. When I was in London, I've been all over, and they were trying to create more entrepreneurship. And I said, oh, well, this is really good. It's an important idea. And I said, I have a great idea how to do it. I said, what's the idea? I said, let's put together a venture capital fund and only give it to people that have failed 4 times. And they looked at me and said, you must be stupid. We can't give money to failures. Right? And the point is, failure is how we learn. And when we talked with Peter about what we should open this event with, it was Peter's idea that we should focus on failure culture, and how we learn from failure. And I learned over and over that failure in most parts of the world is viewed as something terrible, whereas countries that are very successful, have a lot of entrepreneurship, embrace failure, right? Because that's how we learn, that's how we figure out what's right, what's wrong, and without failure, we never get ahead. So anyway, with that short introduction, again, let me welcome all of you, and I couldn't be more excited with the panel we've put together, our new home, our new collaboration with the university, with the city, and I look forward to a long and productive relationship with everybody and all of you. Thank you very much.
So let me just go fetch that microphone, because we're going to need that in a few moments for a couple of questions. So now that we know that at some stage, all of you people, all of you young people out there are going to fail. Not a nice thought, is it? And it wasn't a nice thought for these people here either when it happened. So what we're hoping we'll be able to do today is take some of the experience from some of these failed startups and learn about what it taught them and how it helped them grow in the future. So failure, just like change, is a natural part of life, I guess. So let me start off by quickly giving a short introduction to our panel, and we'll start with ladies first. We have Michaela, a failed startupper. We have Gergely, a failed startupper. We have Andre, an investor who I'm sure has seen lots of failed startups. We have Jordan, who also has seen lots of failed startups. And we have Matisse, who I'm sure has had to comfort and sympathize with lots of startups over his career as an organizational psychologist and mentor, etc. So today, when we read about startups, one of the things we will read is that you should fail fast and fail often. And if you type it into ChatGPT 4.0 today about failing of startups, I'm sure it will give you a very long answer about how to deal with failure and how to embrace failure. The challenge is we're not ChatGPT. We are human. And this is where the human side of failure starts to get interesting, because we all have egos and we all have emotions. And let me just start off by asking Michaela here, ladies first, what it was like for you. Give us a quick introduction to your startup and try to describe what it was for you when you first realized that you were on the road to failing.
Good morning, everyone. I must admit that still when someone tells me I'm a failure startupper, I feel nervous. So that's maybe like just connecting the previous speech, that it's still something very hard to admit that you failed. And but first thing I would like to say that if you would ask me, would you do it again? Would you found the same startup and do the same experience? I would say totally, I would do it because it was my best MBA ever, like seriously. And it opened so many doors for me, even though it's still kind of hard for me to talk about. So should I say the story, right? I founded a Genster. Genster was a fashion startup, and Genster means gentleman and hipster together. Because we found out, guys, how many of you do like shopping the clothes? 2, 3, great. So you see, we had quite a nice target audience because we found out that guys don't like shopping, so we helped them with data and human touch to fill their closets and help them long-term looking very good, not only gentlemen, but also hipsters. And we founded the startup in 2018. We had the angel investor first, and at the end of 2019, we signed a contract with WeXelerate. So as you imagined, 2020 should have been a year for us with scale up. You know, we grew exponentially, like double-digit month to month. And what happened next? COVID came. So the first thing that happened after COVID was that the investors stopped trusting the project. So they stopped the funding, which is totally okay because it's their money, right? They can decide what they do with the money. But for me, it was very hard at the beginning to admit it. Like my first thought or my first thing I did when they told me, hey, we are not going to send you any more money. Okay, I must admit it. I bought a pack of cigarettes. I'm not a smoker, but I smoke it all. I swear, I smoked like these 26 cigarettes at once, and it was really, really hard. But then I called all my team, and I told them what happened, and we tried 4 different business models, and unfortunately, none worked as we wanted to. I was also trying very hard to find different investors, but in 2020 I was not able to. So at the end of 2020, I was thinking, okay, I'm riding the dead horse. So, and I didn't want to do it. So I decided to fail.
Thanks. It was a great story, and also very interesting taking in conversation with our story after my intro. So hi all, my name is Gergely Romhány. I'm used to be a startupper, CEO and founder of a company called Trash Chain. And life has a great sense of humor, as actually our startup success story started on this stage in the WeXelerate program back in 2019. And the whole program had a huge influence on our company's story and also on our success story. So back in those days, it was a legal tech company. I used to be a lawyer, that's why. And we started to build a secure digital contracting platform for companies and for VCs. And actually, COVID had a huge influence on our growing. We already raised €1.5 million by that time, and we had just a few B2B users when the COVID lockdown came in. But in 6 months, we grew up to 4,000 B2B users and international VC users. But also, in the same time, we didn't see that during the growing, because of the COVID things and the false feeling of growth, that it blurred our weaknesses in the product, the weaknesses in the organization, and how we're managing the team. We didn't see that the business model was shit. Sorry for my French. But you have to be honest with yourself, and you talk about your failures. And also ego things and personal things happened. But when we realized that we are going to a dead end, even that as a startup we were successful, we got Forbes articles, international prizes, a lot of users, but still we are not a profitable company. And if you take it from the traditional company terms, it wasn't a successful company because we didn't make profit, we just have a lot of users. So we made a decision to go into a merge with another company, because that was the only way how we could get out from this cradle. And just before signing the term sheet and these papers, my management team member and the other management team member has such a personal conflict which they couldn't solve, so we have to cancel the merge. So it was a pure ego fight. Who will be whose boss after the merge? It happens many times, but I guess the investor colleagues will be able to tell this after the topic. And we have to cancel the merge, and we have to close the company. So this is how COVID can kill you, can help you, but also in the same time, if you are too young or don't have enough experiences how to handle on organizational and management issues like this, and you are pushing yourself too hard and you're running too fast to see where are the obstacles and where are the kind of small banana slipperies that you can close your way or help you to fail. So yeah, this is the kind of way you should realize, but I'm very, very grateful for this part of my life, and it was the best MBA, as you said. Yeah, it's a great learning curve for an entrepreneur if you want to stay as an entrepreneur after that, or even whatever you do after that. So you shouldn't be afraid of failing, because I'm kind of proud to be a failure, to say so. So yeah, that's the long story short. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to skip down to Matisse now at the moment. But first of all, I'd like to ask who else in the audience would put their hand up to say that they have failed? I notice the hands tend to go up quite slowly, but there's a few. The rest of you will, by the way, so don't worry about it. Your hands will go up in 10 years' time. Matisse, we read a lot about failure, and there was a famous quote which I would love to attribute to an Irish footballer called Roy Keane, one of the best midfielders that ever walked this planet. And the quote was, "Fail to prepare, prepare to fail." And if I could ask you, from your experience as an organizational psychologist, how could we really, or can we really prepare for failure, or what could we do better?
Okay. So failure, in a rational sense, of course, you said at the beginning, fail quickly, fail often. That makes perfect logical sense. However, there's this other side of things that I can comment on as a psychologist and as a coach, which is emotional about failure. So has anybody felt some sort of pain when they failed? Okay, so that's the part I'm working with a lot of the time. So in a rational sense, of course, failing often, failing quickly makes perfect sense. However, we need to keep in mind that what takes a hit usually is our self-image in one way or another, right? So maybe you were talking about failures. Did that have an emotional punch to it? Okay. So what can we do about it is, for example, trying to decouple failure on a project, in a situation, or being a failure. So feeling like a failure. That's something we often see because this failure in the psychological sense kind of spills over to all areas. So this area suddenly becomes the one and only important thing in my life, and I failed at it. And at the same time disregarding every other element of our lives. So preparing for it, my short answer would be insultingly simple. So to prepare a fallback position in your other areas of your life. So making a list of, okay, if I fail, who am I going to invite for coffee? Or what movie am I going to go see? Or for example, for Peter, who likes to ride his bicycle, like which trip am I going to take with my kids that I always wanted to if this fails? Kind of to do something that I'm good at, predictably good at, always good at, and try and do that. So for me, I guess that would be music and practicing mostly major scales rather than minor scales, like to get myself happy again.
Great, thank you. Let me just switch to the investor side of the failure now and come to Andre and Jordan. I mean, as investors, one of the key elements that you must evaluate is the team. What cultural or team factors do you take into consideration, or do you see as the main reasons for failure?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Maybe I'll first introduce myself in two sentences. My name's Andre, and One Ventures, we are a pre-seed venture capital fund. That means that we support startups very, very early. We have 37 investments over 2 funds. We invest in the US and Europe in teams with some European footprint in them. And back to your question, that's a very good question, because being very early, being in pre-seed and seed, team is the only thing that's kind of tangible. That's the only evidence that you have. Yeah, the rest is a PowerPoint presentation, which is you know the way it is. So in team, we look. It really depends how old the founders are, and how much in their history you can dig. So if those are guys that are in their 30s or 40s, you want to see their history, their kind of like entrepreneurial or job history. We want to see some consistency, and you want to see that they don't give up, and you also want to see some kind of integrity and moral qualities, because the popular kind of perception of business comes from the wolf from the Wall Street, but it's not as transactional as it looks like, as it might look to the general public. So you look into people who build relationship and who can kind of think in long term. If the founders are a bit younger, if they are university graduates, you want to see that they have, of course, the energy, and that they kind of understand the domain that they are building the startup in. And of course, the integrity and moral qualities have to be there. And and of course, you want to see some distribution of skills through the team. So definitely basic technical skills and business skills have to be there. Yeah, that's basically it. And there has to be some chemistry, and lots of it comes to light when you start to negotiate the deal. When you start to talk to the founders about the conditions of the deal and so on and so on. So because it's a long-term relationship. And when people ask me, this is the last thing. When people ask me, so how you select these founders, I tell them, imagine you are hiring a top executive in your team. Imagine you are hiring or you are finding a co-founder. You look at their history, you look at who they are, you look at the chemistry, because it's going to be a long relationship. So that's basically from my side.
Jordan, any thoughts? And maybe you can introduce yourself as well.
Hi, this is Jordan from Fiedler Capital. We are doing early stage investments across the CEE and the Baltics. And obviously we also have come across lots of interesting stories, and some of them are, of course, connected to failures. In fact, the very first investment that we made kind of made us realize that all these factors, that my fellow VC here outlined should be checked. But even if all the marks are ticked, still some things can go wrong. For instance, there was this startup, kind of like a spin-off from this very famous Hungarian success story, Prezi. the CTO of Prezi decided to come up with his own startup. So we started like evaluating the business concept. It was absolutely rock solid, really huge growth potential, high return potential, everything. The guy was just fabulous. Like he would come here and like he would make best friends with all of you. He had really high ambition. He was a great team player. He was absolutely coordinating all the aspects of the business and was making new client relationships. And he was a true visionary when it came to the product development process. He was very strong in tech. So we invested. We invested 200K to this startup as a first investment. And 2 months down the road, we receive a phone call from his co-founder. Guys, we should speak. Why? There's a huge problem. What? There's no more money on the account. And we're like, what the hell? In 2 months, like you guys like spend all the money? Yeah, the main founder guy actually just transferred all the money to his own account. What? So it turns out that the guy is a gambling addict and actually sweep the account. And we were thinking like how we could have predicted such a failure. I mean, we did like all the background checks. We went to Prezi, we asked the CEO of Prezi, like main founder guy, about the fellow CTO. He was just like giving like marvelous feedback about him. Like we went to T-Systems, the previous employer of the guy. They were like super bullish about him, but still, things happened and bust. So personal integrity is something that always has to be taken into account. And of course, there are two types of failures, like failure from which you can learn from, which revitalizes you and kind of motivates you. And there are these types of failures which are kind of like happen all of a sudden, but we learned it also for ourselves as VCs early on.
I don't know how you would have predicted that one. Michaela and Roman, if I could come back to you for a moment. I mean, we got some advice from Matisse about how to deal with failure. What would you have done differently, maybe apart from not buying the cigarettes? What would you have done differently in the aftermath?
This question is closely connected with the learnings I've done, actually. First of all, for startups, like business plan is very easy because business plan is on Excel sheet. Excel sheet is really good for change. You can grow pretty fast, and Excel is perfect for that. But what I learned was actually take care also about cash flow, because the cash in the bank account is actually what makes you to hold the company longer or not longer. You got the money or you don't have the money. That's for sure one big learning I got from the startup world. The second one was because we were the physical product. We were not the software company, or not the core business was not the software company. So it was have a positive unit costs. You know what unit costs are, right? Like we were sending the clothes in the box. So the box has to be, the box cost, the packaging cost, the clothes cost, the stylist costs, and the money that the customer will pay, it has to make sense and has to be positive. Because if you have this positive, and when you grow, this is the profit you're gonna make. So this was really the financial part I learned, and that's what I'm actually also combining in my other jobs and other work I'm doing right now. And last but not least is the relationships. Everything is about people. And about people in the team. There was the most important people were in my team because they helped me quite a lot. but also in my family and in my friends. So whenever you do something and you think is the most important thing in your world, or in your life right now, don't forget about the different parts of your life too, because you have friends, you have families, you have hobbies, and just don't focus everything on one card. Because you will need them sooner or later. So this was something I learned, and I'm very happy that I have a great partner who helped me quite a lot on my journey. So, yes.
Beat that, Roman.
Wow. You told 50% of the things I wanted to say, so it's great. Yeah, absolutely, you should keep focus on your work-life balance kind of things, which is easy to say after the failure, but it was always no way to do it, by the way, when we were on the road of building a startup company. So first of all, which the advice is I can give it to you and would give to myself when I was in a younger age, 3 things. Have the core functions in the management team or the founding team. We were a tech company, but we didn't have any coders in the founding team. So in case you don't have someone who can work for free, creating the product for free, you have to raise money for that. Which also lead to another thing, that don't raise money too fast and too early from these guys. Sorry, no offense, but you should keep the bootstrapping phase longer, much longer, until the time we have 90% of the product market fit. Because if you raise money too early, you will lose the flexibility and the freedom of navigating and pivoting and figuring out how you want to do it. Because the investor guys will sit on your back from that time you are signing the term sheet, and you have the money on the account, and it's very easy to spend money from the account, but it's harder to get money on the account. So, and also this is led to the third thing, which I should even put to the first place, that put much more focus on sales instead of product development. Somehow European startups have this common mistake actually, that we put a lot of focus on product development instead of selling it before having the products. And this is one of the main mistakes we made, that we didn't put enough pressure and focus on sales, or we did it too late. Even that we would do more sales at the beginning, we would see more earlier phase, the product market fit, the problems, the business model issues, and all these kind of things. And we will be a more stable position when we're raising money. So these are the main things. And also, yeah, keep focus on your private life, because after the failure, you'll be the same person like you were before. You need help from your friends, from your family, and for that, you pay a high price if you don't stay with them during the startup times. Thanks.
Cool. Let me quickly go back to the investors and ask the question: Is previous failure or previous experience in failure as a startup always an advantage when you're evaluating an idea, or is naivety sometimes a better advantage?
Well, it depends. If it's a failure, like taking all money from the account and spending it on gambling, then it's not the best one. But I mean, yeah, it also depends how you failed and how you behaved. Yeah, because failure is a part of business, especially in early stage startups. Because if you are aiming high, and you have to be aiming high, then you can fail. Yeah, the failure rate is really high. When we invest in startups, we see them as maybe they will make it. Like 50% of them will make it. 50% of them will fail at some point. So it's kind of a normal thing for us as investors. And so again, if you don't do anything illegal or anything wrong, then it's fine. And having the experience and having gone through the pain of not doing all things right and learning from it, which most of the time is not going to the customer early enough. And if you can learn from it, and if you can kind of like rationalize it, and pitch how you're going to do it differently this time, then it can be an advantage, and it can be that business experience I was talking about before that we look for in the teams, right?
I think what is even more important is the ability to realize that a different direction needs to be taken. I mean, startups should be ready to pivot, and optimally, such pivoting will happen before they fail. But of course, if they fail, they should learn from that as well, and they should be receptive to receiving advice and feedback, regardless of the nature of the feedback. If they are not receptive, they will fail on the long run, and it's not going to be about pivoting. It's going to be about having to take a different path and a different track on the long run.
I'd like to connect onto that, Matisse, with yourself, and again build on your experience of working with startups and on the coaching side. So failure is relative to the goal that perhaps they set themselves and the identity at which they pitched the company to the investors. So behind the scenes, in the public face, they have a public image of what they're trying to achieve. And then you come to a stage where that's not working, and a pivot is necessary, as we talked about. How do you work with startup founders or co-founders at that phase before they've admitted that their original goal may be not coming through? How do you coach them to consider a new angle?
Yeah, well, first of all, what needs to be done is kind of get a realistic view of what they're capable of. So I had the great privilege of having an excellent coach myself. He said something really important once. He said, you can't burn out if you don't overestimate yourself. So that was a really powerful statement, because it has all to do with ego. So aiming high, sure. But I agree that maybe that's why it's not sensible to kind of get the money up front, because you're not ready for it. So it's kind of like trying to get to a realistic expectation and to compartmentalize what's doable, what's not doable, what other areas you can focus on. So for example, I have a great perspective here. You have a sign behind you that says "frame it," right? If you look over there. So all of you who are native here, you can use that as a friendly reminder to frame a failure or any story that you tell yourself about what's to be done. So to answer your question, we're trying to get to a realistic view of where they're at.
Is that difficult? You talked about ego, and founders obviously are ambitious people. They want to be the next success story, the next unicorn. There's a lot tied into the identity of what they're trying to achieve. Is that a difficult process in kind of navigating the identity and ego topic?
One factor I've found plays a really important role is how perfectionist they are. So a couple of problems with perfectionism is, one is it's very difficult to pivot if you're a perfectionist. So they get really attached to this first idea that they put in their head and kind of try and do that. The other one is learning from mistakes. So if you're a perfectionist, you're going to make less mistakes, and that's a problem, right? So if you want to learn, mistakes are an important, or actually a key component of learning. They're not just an unfortunate side effect. They're part and parcel of learning itself. So, for example, if you have Optimal learning is if you have 10 math problems arranged by difficulty from easiest to hardest. Optimal learning for you will be if you get to the 8th one, do that one right, and the 9th and 10th are going to surpass you, so you're going to get those 2 wrong. So perfectionist is always going to go up to 8, not even attempt the 9 and 10, right, to fail. So it's harder to work with people who have perfectionist tendencies. They're too invested in a predictable future.
Back to the investors, I mean, what role do the investors play, apart from the money aspect, in working with teams and egos and identities in kind of navigating through? And how close should the relationship be between the team or the founder and the investors?
Of course, there has to be a good chemistry between the investors and the founders. That goes without saying, like before, because if such a relationship is not at place, then the whole thing is going to go bust sooner or later. At Fiedler, we tend to work quite closely together with the teams early on after we have invested, kind of acting like an additional co-founder, like a silent co-founder who is there, whom can be, let's say, used as an additional resource, whom can be reached out and could be of help. But of course, like if everything is on track, then we don't intervene. But of course, like setting the go-to-market strategy. Identifying the pricing schemes, the key product features early on, you know, like before actually going live. These are such topics where we actually tend to support the teams. What is also very important, in my opinion, is how the internal team dynamics is working between the different founders. How they complement each other. What is the set of complementary skills that contribute to the whole big picture? Are there like any misalignments or discrepancies between the skill levels of the different founders? Of course, we as investors, we are trying to we give support to balance these inequalities, but if the team is good, then we don't have to be so much involved.
Yeah, I would just add to Jordan. You know, it's kind of like a balance that you have to take. Yeah, you get kind of close to the founder. It's most of the time they are really nice people, you know, and but you can't get too close. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I'm sometimes, you know, still trying to find my way around. Of course, it's a lot about the money, whether you support the startup when they are not doing too well, actually. As you can see, you know, when we talk with Jordan, we don't get an applause here, which is fine because investors are most of the time not the most popular people in the room.
Point of note, they need a clap.
No, but
They're also human, okay?
because I saw some statistic recently that venture capitalists are less popular than insurance companies. So you know, and there's a reason for that, yeah. So yeah, so it helps, you know, seeing it happening in companies, because you can tell the founder, you know, it happens. That's all right when co-founders kind of start to leave the company. You know, when the sales are not doing well, you know, it's normal. It happens. Yeah. It also helps me that I was a founder as well. We had ups and downs. We almost closed the company many times. So you know, kind of going through it helps a lot. Yeah, so we kind of try to help them, you know, keep cool. You know, this is kind of normal, you know. And at the end, You know, you either fail and you go and do something else, or you make it in the end, because that's what we also see from time to time. A company that's almost dead, you know, makes it. They kind of like, you know, find it, like find the business model, find the business market fit when it already had been a write-off in the portfolio. So I mean, like helping the founders kind of not to be so stressed about it, but be a little bit stressed about it. You shouldn't take it too easy, you know. It's still money involved, and we are responsible to our investors. But not to be too stressed about it that they kind of like you know, keeps them from doing good decisions, I think.
Just to tap onto that, I mean, it reminds me of a quote that there's, you know, desperation breeds resourcefulness. So does that anxiety almost stimulate innovation or pivoting or new ideas when problems are become visible? Anybody can answer that question. Michaela? Yes?
I totally agree, because when the investors told that they won't send any money, we tried 4 different business models in 3 months. So I would say it's innovations, right?
Absolutely. So while you have the microphone, I wanted to get a female perspective. So do you think there's a difference between the way men and women fail?
I kind of hoped you won't ask this question.
Doesn't want to hear.
Thank you. It's very hard for me to answer because I'm not the man, obviously. So maybe like one thing I did maybe a little bit differently was that I wasn't, and it's my style of leadership as well. I'm pretty open and I'm very straightforward, always talking to the team and never like leaving any like important aspects. So the first thing after the cigarettes was actually calling all my members of the team, and I told them what happened, and I obviously told them I'm not really sure what to do. And it was 35 people at the time, and I must say that almost all of them stayed with me and helped me to create those innovations, helped me there, like to be there with me, even though they were not sure they got paid, right? So it was coming back to the people importance, but maybe not sure if this is only the girl's perspective. Is it?
Roman?
Funny, I was about to say that you should do it as a gentleman. Sorry, it's not about that, it's just a phrase for that. Yeah, in case when you do a failure and how you handle it, I guess we have a high expectation from CEOs of startup companies, especially in the men's world. It's also a masculine thing to be a CEO, and you should be successful all the time as a startup company leader. But also, in the same time, you should be able, and during actually the times when you're doing it, and it's more about back to the bit for the previous question, and sorry, not answering the ladies and men difference. Yeah, it's pretty hard, and I have no idea because I've never been a woman yet. So
Never say never.
never say never. Yeah, next life, probably. So during, for example, when the first time you enter into the startup world and you're raising the first money from the investors, you will stay in that world for the rest of your life. Even if you're going to the dark side and become an investor, venture capitalist, or becoming a serial entrepreneur and keep building startup companies and other companies, or start to work for another company as having a startup background, you will be still connected with those people who help you on the way to being a startup company owner, CEO, whatever. So it means that you should treat your investors as, I wouldn't say friends, but as fairly and on a gentle way. So you should be correct, fair all the time, not gambling the money, because you should take into account when you're starting a company that there's a small chance, of course, that you will fail. So after the fail, you will need a new investment, or you will need more partners who can help you in the next company, or can say good things about you in case of a referral. So in that means that you will stay in the game anyway, and you should well, you should be correct with all the people working around, and you shouldn't burn all the bridges around. And this also comes to your team, your colleagues. For example, one of my main key person in my previous company was the head of operations. After we closed the company, we worked well, in different bays for 2 years. Now he's serving as, again, head of operation of my new company, which means that we didn't have a bad relationship. He was happy to come back, happy to work with me again, because how we handled the failure times, that was the way, and we kept the personal relations good. And this is the key for that. And I guess there's no difference between man and woman. It's just a matter of the person, how you handling personal relationships.
Thank you. My last question before we go to the audience, and please think about some questions for the panelists because you're coming next, would be and this leads into the second panel discussion, does Central Eastern Europe have any disadvantages when it comes to the stigma or the attitude to failure, and how could we help overcome it in the wider ecosystem? So, looks like you're going first, Andre.
Am I? Yeah, I think we do, and I wouldn't like limit it just to like the Central Eastern Europe. I think it's kind of like it's kind of similar. I don't know the Austrian culture much, but I know German culture, and it's kind of there as well, because the German way of building business is building a long-term family kind of business that will be here for 100 years, and they will be owned by the family forever, which is awesome. But if you don't take enough risk, then you don't innovate enough, and you don't create the next Google or Meta or Nvidia this way anymore. So it's kind of like a European or Central European way of looking at things. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. With more failures, I guess, and with more failures that don't kind of like happen like gambling all the money or doing a fraud, and with more like venture capital funds around here that make it kind of normal that some startups fail, some don't, but if you have a portfolio, you can still win on the portfolio level. This, I guess, can change it culturally slowly. But I don't have the right answer, I guess, but I'll be happy to hear what the other guys. Jordan.
I mean, Central Eastern Europe and the Baltic area is still kind of like an exotic investment target for more advanced ecosystem-bred VCs from Berlin, London, whatever, and US. They don't really understand the dynamics of local businesses and then how people think, and to a certain extent there are some differences, obviously from the history, from the culture, from all the political suffering, from the past, I don't know, like 1500 years. But things started to actually improve, and the ecosystem started to kind of catch up with each other. But still, I guess there are some local specifics, like CEE founders are, for instance, much more introverted as compared to, let's say, like Western European founders. They have a very strong tech domain, but they're a bit shy when it comes to business development or hustling and then finding new networking opportunities, business opportunities. And obviously, foreign investors from the West, they kind of like sense this. And in fact, like, this is something that us local VCs can kind of like capitalize on, because we can assist these teams to gain access to networks and can support them with business tactics. So that's, I mean, like I regard it as an opportunity for myself at least.
Very good. We have another comment here. Yeah.
I had the American co-founder, so maybe the differences I saw was when we got an investment, it was first from the angel investor and then VC fund, you know, I was celebrating like hell. It was like, oh my God, perfect, like all the Forbes and tech crunches, you know, PR articles, was, yeah, Jenster got investments, oh my God. But he was like, Misha, that's the beginning. That's the beginning of the real work. Okay, you're gonna celebrate when you exit or, you know, whatever, but investment is really the beginning. So that might be like the difference between Americans and between CEE founders, because we really celebrate the beginning.
So I'm going to ask for some questions from the audience to our distinguished panelists. Can you raise your hand, please, if you have any questions? Okay, and I'll come down with the microphone now. Please introduce yourself and then ask.
Thank you. So my name is Abel Shomodi and I'm from MCC from Budapest. And you mentioned many times that, I mean, you mentioned, Misha, that you tried 4 times different business models. But when did you realize that you should stop? Why didn't you keep trying? So when is the point when you say you failed, and how can you realize this point?
Great question. It was actually my 4th learnings. I had a deadline, and I totally recommend to everyone to have a deadline in your head. So I had a deadline, like I tried 80 investors, I didn't find the money. We tried this business model, and at the end of the year, I was tired. So I had the deadline. Was it answering your question? Or?
Yeah, for us actually it's an interesting question because we knew that after a while that we should be the good business model, and how should we do it properly and how it will be successful. That was the point when we had to make a decision that even we go big and have making a huge raise of capital, I mean, not just comparing with the Hungarian terms, but even regional terms, or we keep low profile and we change our business model to more like custom developer company and trying to make money from that. And by that time, we made the bad decision and we wanted to go big and raise the big money. And actually, we almost got the big money. And that was the failure of our egos, that we should be more with more self-reflection. We have known that what is the good decision and stop by that time. So you should see yourself from outside from time to time. And this is the kind of, for example, we didn't have a deadline, but we should step back from time to time to see ourselves and to see that, oh my God, what we are doing, we are not able to keep running like this kind of stuff.
Now comes the part when venture capitalists lose their, they don't get any applause. It's always a dilemma between helping those who need help and those who are the winners, right? And the most rational and opportunistic strategy is to focus on the winners in the portfolio and support them, double down on them. On the other hand, like I said, some companies can look like they are going to fail, but they can still make it. Yeah, so it's kind of company specific, but in general, VCs tend to be opportunistic, and that's why they are not much popular, and tend to support the startups that are kind of doing well, yeah, and double down on them instead of feeding a dying horse. Maybe, I guess Jordan will have some interesting comment to that.
I fully agree to this approach. Nevertheless, it's really hard to identify the let's say, inflection point where the project is going to go down, and from that point on, it doesn't make any sense to stick to it or to keep it alive. It did happen in the past that we were very much supporting the teams because we liked the founders and we really believed in the vision, and it was, I guess, already too late, and things went south. There's no secret sauce to this. You just like have to constantly like evaluate the situation and make bold decisions at the end.
Hello, my name is David. I'm coming from Hungary as well, and I would like to ask that. So maybe you might know some stories which were led to unicorns and which didn't end up in unicorns. And I'm asking that what do you see? How did it change by startups, by failure? Was there any change? I know by 50 years. But yeah, like how they related to failure in the past and how they relate now.
No, not really.
Yeah. All right. Sorry.
So I guess you mean that how it changed our reflection to failure stories in the last 30 years, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so. Yeah. Sorry. English is my
question.
second language. Sorry.
No problem. Frankly speaking, we are learning capitalism 30 years ago. So it's a funny thing comparing with the US, for example, how they considering failure things. It's a pretty new thing for Hungary, for Slovakia, Czech in the region. I guess it's changed a bit, but not much. We're still afraid of failures. We're still afraid of failing CEOs. We still have this kind of attitude that just the winners are the ones who we can trust. So I don't feel it's changed a bit. It's changed a bit, but for example, it's more about what is the time between your failure and the next time you meet with that person. So like, do you remind him the failure or not, your failure, if you take that in consideration, and also your next step. And I guess this is the main point, how you go after the failure. If you keep story working and you're building a new thing, a new company, and you can show trustworthiness towards investors, other business economy players, that means that you had the one failure, but you can still go on and building and doing companies. So this is which keeps you not as in the failure box, I think. So maybe it's been changed a bit, but depends on your next steps.
I think the situation is actually changing. Let's say the past 18 months, I've seen like a couple of interesting stories. Like for instance, even like 2 weeks ago, I received an email. I'm not going to say the name of the startup. That okay, we would just like to inform the investor community and like the startup ecosystem players that we're closing down the business, even though we have still like 12 months of runway in the company. But it is absolutely the logical decision to close down the business because we don't see that it's going to fulfill expectations. And even though it's a painful story, it is better for everyone. So we are paying back the remaining sum to the investors, and we're closing down the business, and we're going to look for like some other opportunities. And such things start to happen more and more often these days. And I haven't experienced similar emails or approaches, let's say like 2, 3, 5 years ago.
Hi, my name is Bruce. I'm studying entrepreneurship at Modul. And I just have an interesting question, just in the sense of it's good to be comfortable with failure and become accustomed to failure when you're trying to become an entrepreneur. But what point would an entrepreneur be considered uninvestable if they are a failure? So if I failed trying to start up a company twice or 3 times, does that make me uninvestable? Or if it's 5 times or 6 times, is it still considered a good thing that they are failing? Or where do we draw that line? Thank you.
Yeah, there's no line. It's company specific, and you know, I liked what Zoltan said at the beginning, that he wanted to start a fund that invests in founders that have failed 4 times, and you know, I loved it because, you know, a lot about success, and we had an interesting conversation with Matis yesterday about that, is that a lot about success is luck. Yeah. So I mean, so if we have some guys who know statistics, maybe they will be able to correct me. But from my kind of gut feeling is, you know, the more you try, the closer you are to your luck. Hopefully, yeah. So maybe if you have failed like 5 times, maybe this is going to be your lucky. The 6th one is going to be your lucky startup, maybe. So you are maybe more probable to success. But that's one thing, and the other thing is what we said before. Yeah, it's how you failed, you know, how you learned from it, you know, how you know, what was the failure, how you pivoted, whatever. Yeah, so it's kind of very specific. But this luck element is also something, you know, we factor in. And let me do one little thing, because I want to make a selfie with you guys. So if you could like smile in the camera. Sorry. Yeah, but maybe who wants to come on? But Matic, we had an interesting conversation on that. Modul maybe.
Yeah. So our conversation started because there's some interesting research coming out regarding top athletes, like really the 1% of the 1%. It was really interesting when they modeled the factors that make an elite athlete. There was a factor called luck in there as well. That really surprised me. Although it shouldn't, right? So we were talking about the impacts of that. In one sense, we could say luck has a system. Let's say, okay, so if you think things through, you have more luck, let's say. But there is this really luck element, and the other way around as well. So if failure was really due to bad luck, I think you would still invest, right? It was really bad luck. Having said that, attributing everything to bad luck is probably a red flag as well, right? Bad luck.
Okay, now it didn't fail. So again, the question is like, what is the pattern behind? Because like all the 4 or 5 failures are having the same root cause. Then probably you start thinking that, okay, that maybe it's not the best idea to invest into such a startup. I mean, it's kind of like similar to marriage, you know, if you see like serial guys, you know, like who just like mess up their relationships, and like after the 5th wedding, you know, they still think that it's going to work. Like, I don't know.
Hello, my name is Győző Kaszó. I'm from MCC from Budapest as well. When great salesmen are asked how they knew that they will get salesmen and that they will get successful, they sometimes tell a story that when they were a child, they sold their Legos in the kindergarten to the others. And this was like something that predetermined them to become successful in sales. Are there any traits or like habits that predetermine entrepreneurs in getting good startups? And this is a question to all of you. I'm also really interested from a psychological aspect. How do you think about that?
Probably not my type of question, right? Yeah, I had experience with business, like not from like really kindergarten, but we sold, for example, paper from elephant poop. So it was also like a couple of businesses I had in my high school and university years. So I must say that, yeah, my CV is also in there, but not sure if I'm the right to answer this question, to be honest. Sorry? Yeah, but you are asking if there is like typical experience or like
Personality
characteristics,
traits, I think.
personalities, right? That's probably more new.
Don't give up. Because, you know, most of the startups that kind of like are looking that they would fail and make it in the end, make it because they don't give up. It's kind of crazy. They don't have the deadline maybe sometimes. So it's kind of a crazy attitude towards their life, but it can work out. So what we look for is some consistency and some not giving up kind of, you know, quality of the person. You know, some hobbies that require you to, you know, be loyal to the hobby, playing a musical instrument, doing some sports, yeah, or, you know, something like that. That's a proof that the person has learned not to give up easily on things.
The background is really important. Maybe not rooting back to childhood, perhaps, but let's say university or high school studies are super important. And as Andre mentioned, professional sports can play a really important role in having the mindset that is essential for entrepreneurship. Also, when it comes to education, we always like to look for founders that have international experiences from the past, either have worked on an international environment or went on an exchange program to a different country through like Erasmus or studied abroad in high school, you know, like with an exchange program or something like that, and that helps the approach, the mindset, and being flexible, being open to new circumstances.
One more thing, maybe. You have to love the change, because the startup life is every change. Like, you don't do work every day the same. You do 1 month, you are looking for investors, another one you are hiring people, another one you are looking for customers and creating campaigns. You have to love change. You cannot be conservative that much.
Would you like to answer? Yeah, I think we need to kind of wrap this one up. So, I mean, how many of you out there see yourselves as future founders, CEOs, start-uppers? Yeah. Okay, so a few. I mean, as they say, to err or to fail is human. And I think that's the message we wanted to leave you with here today. So what can we learn? I mean, first of all, don't let it be a stigma in your head if you fail. So talk about it. So I would like to say congratulations and thank you to the two failures in our panel today for sharing their stories, difficult stories, and obviously full with difficult memories, of course. So thank you very much for that. I would say involve a coach or have somebody you trust to share with. Don't keep it to yourself. And sometimes you need to go outside your team to fully be vulnerable, but allow yourself to be vulnerable with a coach or psychologist. And obviously we've learned today that, you know, a good relationship with your investors, allowing them to help you and finding the right investors are some things that you can do to mitigate failure, but you will never totally avoid it. So I'd like to wrap up today and thank our panel, give them a big round of applause, and thank you. Okay, I think we have about a 30-minute break before the next panel discussion. So stand up, stretch your legs, go for some fresh air. engaged. Yeah, no, couldn't ask for better. Sometimes it's hit and miss with these things, but I prepared well in advance. I spoke to all of them over the last 2 weeks, and last night we had dinner together, so that kind of helps build a bit of rapport. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just about to start our second panel discussion. If I could ask you to take your seats, please. Oh, sorry. Let's go, Miss Awesome. No, everybody you want to take their seats. Wherever you want to sit. Maybe let one of the guys sit in between the ladies.
Oh, this is the ladies' panel.
Becky, have you seen Jordan? So we're just waiting on one of our panelists to join, so give us a few moments. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, could I ask you to give us your attention, please, if you don't mind? We're just going to start our second panel discussion. Sorry to interrupt your sandwiches and everything, but hopefully we'll have more sandwiches after this panel discussion. Betty. Okay, so how did you feel about the first panel discussion? Did you learn anything? Yeah? You're not afraid of failing now? Yeah, it's not going to be nice, but still, at least you might be better prepared now. So our second panel discussion today focuses on, it's hard to describe, central. It doesn't, there we go again. What's going on, man? So the Central Eastern Europe region, whether or not we are meeting our full potential, obviously Europe has to compete with economies like the US and China. Central Eastern Europe might need to compete, and the Balkans of course might need to compete with Western Europe. Everybody is looking for the next unicorns. It seems like the only definition of success in today's world is, are you a unicorn? And we seem to forget about all the $100 million businesses that create so much employment around the world. But are we reaching our full potential? So we've pulled together a group of panelists, and as you can see, delighted to see so many women on this panel, because the panels always get criticism that there's not enough diversity. So let me just start. We'll go from left to right. So we have Urska, an innovation facilitator. Good description. Yeah, you can introduce yourself in more detail. We've got Mariana, ecosystem builder. We've got Yeva, ecosystem builder. Got Andre, ecosystem builder. You know this gentleman, he's an investor that never gets a round of applause, so we have to fix that this time. We need more applause. And we've also got Magdalena, who's also in the ecosystem kind of development category. So You can, okay, another round of applause for Jordan. So, where do we start? I mean, whenever you bring up the discussion about Europe, people fear for their cultural identity. It seems to, it's a natural fact that, ecosystems are nationally focused, especially in this region where we've got kind of fragmented countries, cultures, languages, legal systems in the nature of what Europe is. But we're going to try and step aside from those national identities at the moment and think what could be the goal. But I'd like to kick off by giving each of the panelists a chance to quickly introduce themselves first and tell me, where do they see some of the problems? Microphone is down.
Okay, I guess I'll start. A little bit about myself. Yeah, that's a complex because I could call myself an ecosystem builder since and a failure. My bankruptcy led me to found ABC Accelerator. That was a global accelerator with offices also in Munich and Silicon Valley. All our initial team then stepped out and we created our own ecosystems, and that's what I'm doing today, running innovation programs from corporates that actually funds my support to startups and whatever we do with them. And in the free time, I opened a VC as well. So part of the day I'm loved and part of the day hated. So that's the thing.
Sounds busy.
Yeah, it's all my personalities have interesting conversations during the night. Challenges that I see, yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful region with amazing potential, but so much differences in what each country is doing in the sense of supporting the ecosystems, that this is why connecting one ecosystem to another is a little bit more difficult, because some of the countries really have a lot of public grants, funds, focus on talent, and some of them are really, really under the radar. And I think we could all do a little bit more to support the ecosystems that are not constantly under the spotlight.
Hi, my name is Micah. So it's also very difficult to describe what I do, but Mark did it very well. And it's true that I'm an ecosystem builder. So we pretty much have an NGO that focuses on connecting startups, early stage startups, investors, mentors, seed or like post-seed Series A startups with the younger generation, and tries to like kind of network all of them together, share knowledge, and all of these things that we do, we build around creating events that are happening pretty much monthly in Bratislava. We try to do business speed datings, workshops, just really host educational opportunities for people who want to really be and get into entrepreneurship in general. And following up on the problems, it's very true what my colleague here said. I think we are one of the ecosystems in Slovakia that's pretty much under the radar. So one thing is because we have a huge lack of money from the government that is investing into entities that do something like we do, and we are really challenged by this. But it's also, the second thing is, yeah, we are still looking for our first unicorn, and if we compare our country to the Czech Republic, which is bigger, but the language is the same, a lot of Slovak people live there, but they have unicorns, they have a lot more funding, the government is a lot better there. So yeah, I think getting a first unicorn would really kickstart our ecosystem as well.
Hey, my name is Jan, as you said, and I think between like investors and the insurance agents, I think the governments are the third that are really not liked. and happens so that since September I actually work with municipality of Riga. I'm in city council and work with our investment agency that work, and I personally work with startup ecosystems. So what I see that there is importance of supporting ecosystem players like actors like we have, like community builders. So we regularly meet with them. So I got a name like mother for all communities in Riga, because like we regularly gather them and understand like what are the needs, how we can make the ecosystem better. So we have also monetary support activities for them, and we kind of trust that ecosystem knows better what they need versus like telling like, okay, go and make a hackathon. We are like, okay, here is money. If people say they need 10 hackathons, then probably they need 10 hackathons, probably not, but we let the ecosystem to decide. That's one part of it. Like I'm like 8-9 years already in all this craziness of unicorn angel wonderland that we have around the startups, and I worked with community building in a conference called Textual. So that was my first like in a community job to unite the communities around like one event and so on. And since then, like there's been like events and activities and accelerators and whatnot, like all like kind of more or less related to the community and ecosystem building.
Hey everybody, my name is Andrei, based in Timișoara, Romania. I call this job of being an ecosystem builder as a professional juggling. It's kind of like throwing a lot of balls in the air, trying to catch them and figure things out while they fall. Been active since 2014 in the startup ecosystem in Western Romania. I think one of the main challenges we have as ecosystem builders and somewhat enablers is that we help a lot while we need help ourselves as well. And that's a challenge. And it's a challenge because at the end of the day, we need support. And getting to the question that you asked, Mark, that's also the reason why we tend not to focus that much outside of our ecosystem. We try to figure it out in our ecosystem, try to figure it out in our country, the support that we need, the support that we could get in order for us to better serve the startups and our community. And that's mainly one of the reasons why we might be actually disconnected to everything that happens across the region.
Hi, I'm Jordan. Those of you who were present at the last panel know that I'm a VC for the main part. But I also had the privilege to found and manage the largest startup hub in Budapest for several years. We were trying to give something back to the community and facilitate knowledge sharing and different learning activities locally. And I also have had the opportunity to work for the government for a couple of years. Not many of you probably know that. I was distributing EU funds in Budapest for 2 years as Deputy State Secretary, so I kind of had a taste of the economic development policy side and growth strategy on a country level as well. And even though I had this experience, or maybe because of that, I don't know, I have like a quite extreme view on the government's involvement in ecosystem development, and that is, it should be a really, really passive involvement, if at all. Yeah.
Hi, I'm just thinking how to present what I do, and I would present the way my last 8 years. So I'm running acceleration program from Poland, but it's international program from startups, not only from the CEE region, but beyond that region. And we started 8 years ago, while in Poland, it was the beginnings of the startup ecosystem and the beginnings of open innovations at the corporate side. And with our program, we started organizing the ecosystem and the links between startups and corporates with the vehicle which our program is. And I call it platform. And this platform we organize in the best possible way. We were able to do that at that moment. So we were looking for where are the best practices. And we saw them during MIT conference in Boston. That's why we immediately linked with MIT Enterprise Forum, and we became MIT Enterprise Forum CEE from the beginning, having their network, their tools and practices, how we can teach entrepreneurship and how we can organize network and ecosystem and connect them with the highly developed ecosystem from day one. And now we rebranded as a network last year, and now the new name is Start Smart CE. And even though in the beginning I hated that name, but now it is okay, Start Smart CE. This is my call to action, Start Smart CE. Now, the challenging thing for me, one of many challenges we face in the ecosystem is European funds. Because sometimes they are stopping us of doing ambitious things. They allow us to do ambitions of people that were writing those documents. Now it's a moment that let's use those funds in a way we like it and do it together, because what we wanna produce is the startup economy, sustainable one. So this is what is my mission right now, and was from the beginning. But now I think we have so many lessons learned, failures, and we knew how to not to compete, but collaborate. So now I think we can share and build something together.
Thank you. Jordan, I'd like to come back to you because you have some experience working with the government, and as you mentioned, you have some strong opinions about government involvement. From an investor perspective, your goal, your interest is to grow the startup as much as possible to get a return on your investment. What do you see as the biggest obstacles for your portfolio companies across the region?
Well, the biggest obstacles are kind of like the access to networks, access to knowledge sharing opportunities locally, and the administrational and bureaucracy burden that they are facing once they are operating a local entity, for the most part. Definitely, like from the ecosystem building perspective, more opportunities to collaborate with later stage businesses or fellow early stage startups, and generally like tech developers and creative people would help the whole system.
So then let me turn those comments onto the ecosystem builder. So access to networks as a way of access to markets would be critical for your portfolio companies, your tenants in your co-working spaces, your clients. What do you see in the region as how these ecosystems, these national ecosystems, and all the hard work you're doing in your home countries, what do you see in the region as, you know, the frameworks or collaboration opportunities to provide better access? What good examples can you see, or where can you see the challenges there?
I think there is like two really good examples, and that's not some particular ones, but like more like categories. One is investments, because there is cross-border investments and co-investments happening like in the region. There is like, you guys are in a Baltics, then there is an investment from Bulgaria that has invested in Latvian companies. In the Baltics, they cross-invest and invest together with each other like all the time. like it doesn't matter if it's Lithuanian, Latvian, or Estonian company, and even more, it's also tied together with like other like regional companies. We have like Bad Ideas Fund, for example. I know that they have investments in Ukraine and so on, in Slovakia too. So those things are happening because, right, like investors will look where are the talent and where are good companies, and it's more like the problem on the Western investor side. When we were talking with someone from Northern Europe, they were like, yeah, Baltics are not in our thesis. And it was like, how you can have Northern Europe fund without having us in the thesis? Like, we're like just 1 hour flight away. And they're like, yeah, sorry, I will try to make sure that the next season we have it. And in the CEE, that is not so big of the problem. There is funds that are active across the border. So I think that's a really good example. And other thing what I see, because that's background I'm coming from, is events. Event organizers across Europe like are actually collaborating. You might think that they're competing for an audience and for speakers and for money, but as the sponsorships are actually very local, we don't so much compete for a sponsorship. And then again, it makes sense to work together for good speakers and an audience and collaborate and invite each other to events, because that kind of makes us stronger and makes it look better. And some of the good speakers are actually following each other. So if you invite one, like the 5 will come and you will have like amazing lineup. So those are like 2 like categories where the collaboration actually is happening like very well.
I'd like to build on what you said. There's a lot of collaboration going on a like one-on-one basis. You always know somebody in a country. As a community builder, it's somewhat our job to know somebody in another country that we can go and talk to if we have a startup maybe that's looking to expand over there. And then we go and see if there's a VC that's also interested and it makes sense for that startup to set up shop over there. So that's a perspective. But at the same time is a challenge because it's just a bunch of people being connected and not the entire ecosystems per se being connected to one another. It's just a bunch of individuals from Hungary, from Romania, from anywhere across Europe. And at the end of the day, that's a bottleneck. It's a bunch of people, that's it. And the question is, how can we maybe better connect as a higher level, at an ecosystem level, have maybe more people connected? I know events is definitely a launchpad for that. As event organizers, we do have to stay connected with everybody. We go at each other's conferences, events, so that we get to learn from one another and have these kind of connections in terms of partners, speakers, and so on. But yeah, it's interesting.
Maybe I would just add to the like a good case thing. So we've been part for quite some time of Central European Startup Awards. I'm sure you guys, at least in the panel, know it. I mean the competition. And I think like from my perspective, since our ecosystem is like very young, I'm also not like a lot of years active in the ecosystem. That was like the first touch when I was like, okay, there's an actually like a bigger community. There's an actual like, people I can reach out to, people we might be able to talk to, speakers that we might be able to get through that channel. The knowledge we can bring back to Slovakia, because right now, I mean, quite honestly, if I go back again like to my country, it's like very local knowledge. We have 20, 30 events per year, but like 5 good speakers. No one wants to listen to that anymore. So, if there's any potential speaker that would like to share something, we would be very happy to welcome them in Slovakia. So, because if we continue on this path, we will never be able to achieve the unicorn that we're like very much eager to get.
Yeah, I'll definitely first congratulate the Central and Eastern European Awards because it raised the bar of awareness about startup world. We need to know, also on regards to the previous topic, that these things in this region are pretty new. It's not like in US, they're breeding startups. Here we are still seriously, the region is learning step by step, and there are a lot of countries that are still lagging behind. And Central and Eastern European Startup Awards are making a buzz. It's an awesome event, awesome community, greatly led, and people start, following and going there, networking and all that. Now I'll have a tiny little remark about local ecosystems because we do work globally. We have offices all over the place and we work on accelerators and startups all over the place. We run an accelerator program together with Raiffeisen Landesbank in Graz. We have open events with awesome, amazing international speakers. Who comes? Our awesome, amazing international startups. Local, no. And they're open with people that come from all over the place that are really, really, willing to share, travel to Graz in Austria, share there, whatever. We send invites. We give everyone, it's like, come on, seriously, it's an awesome opportunity. You will have one-on-one mentoring with that person. And no. The thing is, what I see, we very often come to the thing that I needed to teach startups to hustle. Go talk to the person. Please, it's standing here alone, talk. They're very reserved. So it's like, one is reserved, the other one is, oh, it's that accelerator, so probably we cannot go, even though it says everywhere open event, which is Sarah's putting posters all over the place. But there is this distinction, oh, it's international, it's not for us. So this is something that was a surprise for me when we started doing that, because I was like, come on, seriously, we have that opportunity, everyone will go. But it's still something like, okay, it's international, the language is English, networking will be in English, so, oh no, next doors, it's a local beer and pretzel thing, something. I know everyone, so I would prefer to go there. We need to know that a lot of these ecosystems are still very much reserved and feel comfortable with each other. So we need to work on that one as well as a little bit of a boost to encourage people. It's cool to talk to people,
Can I have a really quick remark? Like in the Baltics, it's opposite. Like if the event is Latvian, then like it's probably the same local speakers speaking, so no point to go there. And most events, honestly, is in English, so it's kind of working language in a startup environment, and it's very much like, oh, international event, then it's worth for me to leave the office and go there. If it's in Latvian, then it's probably the same people I already heard, so yeah.
I'm just gonna also do a quick remark, because in Slovakia, and I feel that also in Czech Republic, it's, from my experience, it's exactly the way that people feel uncomfortable speaking in English, especially like the early stage founders whose like level of English is not like over the top native something. They are very, very scared to go to the events and talk to people that they don't know, and especially if they have to do it in English. Like it's very. I returned from a conference from Cyprus that was organized partly by a half Slovakian team, and it was pretty much the same. Like the Czechoslovak community hung around together, and then there was the other, I don't know, Cypriot, Greek, Middle Eastern, whoever people were there. They were networking in their own thing, but the Czechoslovak community was doing their own thing, and ending up in a place in the evening and partying and stuff. But it was mostly done in our native language, pretty much. So there's probably a scary thing to speak in English, probably somehow for some reason.
So it's interesting. I read an article recently, which made the comment that you can productize and scale on top of standardized systems. And what I'm hearing and what we see is a lot of fragmentation. Without government involvement, is it realistic to think that all these national ecosystems would be able to pull together and address non-standard topics like legal frameworks in different countries, or how to improve levels of English in a country without government involvement? Or how much, back to Jordan's comment at the beginning, how much should the government be involved in pushing those topics?
I think the government should be involved. I'm not really agreeing with that remark. But in short, yes, I think it's possible to do it also without the governmental involvement. I think it just would be harder and more maybe unstructured in a way, and it would take a longer period of time to kind of get there where we want to get. Whereas if there was government involvement, it would, I mean, apart from the bureaucracy of it all, but it will probably be more structured, and it will probably, you know, actually have some impact on in the long run. I don't know, like.
Down there wants to respond.
So with the government money and the private money, I can share only my perspective and experience. And what I've observed is that sometimes government money are not needed, and they even discourage private money. And this is the bad thing that happened last years, yeah? That we experienced that without that money, we will be faster in a place that we want to be. Because of that money, because there are elements of the ecosystem that we need government money, like coming up with ideas, incubators. This is the place where private money are not risking any investment, yeah? But in my case, we are running accelerator when there is a moment that we are connecting business with business. So what for are these public funds? Just to discourage them to grow faster? Yeah, so it's the opposite effect when it all depends. And with investments, there was a huge amount of funding, public funding for VC. It was needed in Poland because it created ecosystem, it created VCs, yes? But now, I don't know what's the moment.
Jordan, let's come back to you then, because you provoked this question, and you're saying, okay, keep the government out, but on a European level, we've got different legal systems. There's no Europe Inc. or Europe Ltd. legal framework, if you like, apart, from the SE type of company structure, which is quite complex maybe for startups. What's the business case for these ecosystem builders to get them to collaborate and go outside their national? I mean, it's easy to understand what the business case is locally, but what's the business case for them to push beyond and to collaborate?
When I say that government involvement should be minimized, I mean that they should not provide financial resources. They should provide infrastructure, and they should provide ease of bureaucracy, and they should definitely provide tax incentives. So in this case, if you create an environment that facilitates investments, facilitates collaboration, and facilitates knowledge sharing, then basic standards of basic economics fundamentals are going to find their ways. Demand and supply will balance out, and new businesses will come out of it. And that is much more forward-looking than trying to facilitate different economic policies which may distort the natural flow of demand and supply. I don't know if...
Okay, so we're saying keep the government out of the financing part, but get them to create the environment. Okay.
Right.
I will say something else. I partially agree, because there is, and you need to understand, like, probably like either country or regional like context, because I have seen also, and also in our region, and especially like Western Balkans, that there is a lot of what locals said, like the community builders, that the big problem is that comes some EU program, EU fund, says, oh, now we're doing this million program, that then it ends up like in salaries and fancy office and PR stuff, and no one in local ecosystem benefits. So that's useless, right? Like that's for sake of doing. And even more so, like if you look at some Gulf countries, like where they have like, or like some other like oil countries, they have more money than they know what to do with it. And they're like, oh, let's throw it at the innovation. And like, no one needs the things that they are like providing. They really give too much money and people just become, like the startups become lazy. Oh, I can build this startup for 5 years and not care about not having money, right? So it doesn't create the urgency. In the same time, when I say we work with ecosystem, like that is the ecosystem that says us that please help us, because on a country level, we are not yet there for the private money to start sponsoring ecosystem projects, right? Like activities and stuff that don't have any like direct outcome right away. There is no like, oh, now we make this barbecue stuff where all the community come together, like why to have the logo there? So there is not so much like private support in that. So, but it's needed for creating those communities and building like everyone closer together and collaboration. So that's where we can come in and help them, or like university accelerators, right, or stuff like that. Like, I feel that there is a need, but you need to listen what the community says. They are the people who are on the ground and working with the startups and see the problems. And if they say like, don't do this stuff, but give us money for this, then probably they're right.
I'll add just from another perspective, because also this was the reason why we founded ABC Accelerator back then, because we wanted to be privately funded accelerator. Not because we thought that it's bad to get money from governments, but because we saw it as a barrier to speed of support that we want to do to whoever we wanted to do. So we kept that. The thing is that it always comes with bureaucracy, it always comes with a lot of rules, and like you said, it ends up very often to very nice offices and people that go home at 4. We didn't believe in that, we were like a crazy bunch, we still are. But what we learned along the way, getting a private accelerator, getting private money literally meant training corporates why we are doing it so that they would invest in what we are doing. And that ended up us doing programs for corporates. So from one side, they would fund our accelerators and invest in startups and support their activities. But from the other side, we would slowly teach them and they would get some kind of programs out of it. And now lately, finally, also startups that they can use, but it took us a lot of years for that. At the beginning, it sounded like really perfect. Oh, come on, you tell a corporate that they need innovation, they're open, they had on the slides, open innovation, you come with startups, and magic happens. And no, most of the time it doesn't, because they need to understand from within, meaning starting with people and everything. So that's why we addressed so many topics, do coaching, trainings, people education and growth, so that this can actually happen, that we get private money for the programs that we do with startups and we can do the accelerators. But public money is always great because it does ignite and start something on the areas that doesn't exist anymore. And because if we see now the landscape of innovation and acceleration and in incubators in the, let's say, the broader Balkans, you could totally see blind spots. And these are the spots that are out of European Union, meaning there is a lot of talent, amazing startups that just have passionate people trying to help them without any kind of financial support. And because European Union is not supporting the governments have no money to support forward. So we have this big difference in the landscape in the CEE region. So, yeah.
So let me quickly do a quick survey and hands up, right? So a quick panel vote. Are we fulfilling our full potential as a region? Yes or no? Yes, hands up. So we have a problem. Let's try and work into solution mode. We talked about the involvement of where government should be involved in infrastructure or in the environment, money coming from the private side. What creative funding models, Jordan, I'm looking towards you, creative funding models maybe could be adopted to integrate the region better?
Well, as some of you guys mentioned, corporate involvement. Large corporates, manufacturers, tech companies, multinational companies should be incentivized to cooperate on an international level, not only with each other, but also with the growing startup ecosystems. And here, I would actually say that there is something that the government can do, and that is to provide such tax incentives, that would kind of enable these corporates to start thinking out of the box and cooperate with startups, become design partners, for instance, organize corporate accelerator programs. And that can be an absolutely market-driven, profitable business at the end of the day. Because if you're supporting a startup, you might resolve some of your own operational issues, might develop a new technology. If you enter a corporate accelerator program with some local incubator, then you might even realize a large return on investment. So this is where the government can step in and can facilitate involvement. That's one thing. The other thing is the promotional aspect of venturing. I think the whole region is having lots of success stories. I know you don't like the word unicorn, but like there are some unicorns growing out of the region. There are some successful entrepreneurs, but first of all, most end up in more advanced ecosystems and might remain there, which is totally okay, because that's the way to kind of enter the global scaling, which is essential. But what is missing is kind of local promotion of the success stories in those specific ecosystems where the teams have started out from. Maybe it roots back again to the different nationalities, introverted nature. I don't know, but there should be more outgoing approach to promoting these success stories. Yeah.
I want to add on something, because I heard on my left corporate support, I heard on my right corporate support. We didn't get to the point where we get to see this, for example, in Romania, or if we do see it, we do see it like a super small support, but just in the capital, and we're kind of big country-ish. So yeah, I'm super curious after the panel to discuss how do we approach this, because at the end of the day, they are part of the ecosystem and they can contribute in a way in which it makes sense for them. But we didn't figure out the way to do it. So this also boils down to how can we leverage the fact that some of the ecosystems in CEE figured out some of the things that make their ecosystem work, while some of us didn't yet figure that one out. So that's super important. And what we noticed also in our ecosystem is what Jordan just mentioned about not leveraging enough the success stories that we have. A lot of people don't know about the startups that we had in the ecosystem that they're from our own ecosystem. And that's super important, because that somehow drives courage and somehow inspires everybody to, hey, if they made it happen, they had somewhat the same background, we can try it out.
Actually, Romania is a good example, because with the UiPath story, some things started accelerating, evolving locally, because local potential founders regard UiPath as kind of like a secret sauce to breaking out and becoming like a really successful entrepreneur. It's kind of similar to what those guys in Brazil are doing with football, right? Like poor guys are like playing in the streets because they all have their role models, and they know that if they play soccer all day, at the end of the day, they might become the next superstars. So this is something that should be educated and facilitated. For instance, in Hungary, it's a huge issue that there are in fact some successful startups, but they don't really give back to the local ecosystem. They don't share their stories, their different problems that they were facing, you know, going through different investment phases or problematics through their growth stage. They just like through some meetups in order to recruit local talents, and that's it. They don't really want to give back, and that's something that should be educated.
Magdi?
I would like to comment this promotion and maybe leveraging or success stories or something else. When I was presenting the ecosystem map, I mean Poland as a country and business-wise, what companies we have had in 2010. On the map, there were only a few R&D centers of multinational, factories of multinational, and our state-owned companies, yeah? After 7 years, the map was like, plenty of them, including R&D centers organized by European Union funds, public institutes, R&D centers, and not only organized by academia, but also anything else, yeah? And my reflection was how to offset that. Because the problem with them was that in the beginning, when we have multinational present in our economy, they are non-decision makers in our economy. This creates a problem when we want to introduce them as startup. But year after year, because of the success stories of people working for them from Poland and R&D project, they were able to convince headquarters that from here we will start this R&D project, and the rollout will be from Poland, yeah? And that brings some decision power to Poland. And immediately after, we started, let's organize acceleration track together, and let's organize talented people around challenging topics, yeah? And now let's offset that power that we have, and also the existence of that community created around those companies, because it is what we need to have, even though someday maybe they will decide to, you know, move somewhere else, yeah? And that's why I'm so maybe pro connecting startup with business, because we have in Poland, majority of our startups are B2B, yeah? And why not? So we need to create a market for them. And we need to stay with a market. And they are growing, so they are bringing, because we are, after 30 years of learning how to transform our economy, now we are ready to organize our homegrown businesses that are able to support others, yeah? So this giving back means a lot, not only giving back, like offsetting those potential that we have due to presence of multinational, due to presence of new R&D centers, due to presence of investors, and due to presence of us being connected. It wasn't possible 10 years ago, yeah? We were not there. And another comment about the promotion. Because 8 years ago, we decided that our program will be partly run in Poland and partly in Boston for best startups. So we took, from every cohort, we selected 5 startups and organized for them a week-long bootcamp in Boston. And every day they had demo day session and networking workshops and whatever we created. For us, it was super important that they were trained how to pitch by US-based trainer. So the numbers were US on their slides and the approach. And it was very difficult also to help them to network. Because like in your case, they were like, oh, there are Polish people. Oh, there are some Central Eastern European people. Oh, no, don't go this way. You need to learn how to present your solution among others. And the second thing was what reflections came to startup founders after this week. Because they were brilliant, talented. Some of them were scientists, some of them were like engineers, some of them were business people, and they organized nice startups. And they were no different than the US based. The difference was they financials, they can absorb maybe how they organize themselves or how they present. Yeah. So this is what came to my mind also, that CEE was non-existent from the US perspective. Poland, where it is. Yeah. Now the problem we have with political, problem, and geopolitical, that there is a war next to us, bring the attention of the world to this part of the world. So when I was in Australia, in the US, in Saudi Arabia, everyone knows where Poland is now. And everyone is aware of our economy, that this is a positive GDP, yeah? Even though there was a crisis and things like that. So this is the moment that we can start strategic thinking about promoting the region, that we can collaborate and create some common strategy and promote. And what I also observed in the US, that Estonia is great in promoting Estonian startups and Estonia as a nice place where startups come from, yeah? And they are great because this is a small country, yeah? Poland is not a small country from the perspective of the world. It is small, but from our perspective, it is not. So my talk was, let's promote not Poland, not Slovakia, not Czech Republic. Let's promote CEE as a source of talented and well-organized startups.
Micah, you wanted to make a quick comment?
Yes, but actually it was made at the end by your speech. I just want to say that, yeah, the question was like, how can we do better and stuff like that? Like, yeah, we should promote the region as such, but I think that us sitting here as pretty much ecosystem builders, if you were to ask me about the Polish ecosystem, I wouldn't know anything. If I were to ask you guys about the Slovak ecosystem, you wouldn't probably know a thing. So I think the first step that we should take is us as ecosystems, and it's on us to find out a little more about what's happening in our small countries and then promote the CEE as such.
I'm hearing a lot of philosophical we shoulds. And I'm not hearing, and I don't feel, the business case. Why? What's in it for me? And that's the first question that people will ask. What's in it for me? Apart from a unicorn founder who now has financial security and has freedom to give it back and spend time and invest and play with philanthropy, etc., and build his personal brand across the region. What's in it for me? What's the business case? I don't see it. I hear the we shoulds. I hear that we're not reaching our full potential, but where's the business case for who's going to grab it all together?
And there's the business case for the corporates, as I mentioned, and there's the business case for the VCs. For instance, in Budapest, we established the startup hub back a few years ago because it really made sense to have a platform from which there are potential investment targets growing out. So it was absolutely a good business case for us. Nevertheless, when we ran out of our first vintage, the first fund, we had to realize that the startup hub should be operated as a standalone business, and eventually it wasn't the biggest business on earth, to be honest. I mean, like we actually ended up closing the place because the opportunity cost of running it was too big. I mean, we were making money, but in order to make money or to be cash flow positive, let's put it that way, we had to put lots and lots of effort to it.
That's what we've been working on figuring out for the past 10 years, at least from our perspective. We have two things. So we have a co-working space, that's a business. And then we have the ecosystem support, which is an NGO. The co-working's doing okay. The NGO is figuring things out every day, trying to figure out the business model. And we haven't gotten to an approach that's actually sustainable more than, I don't know, a few months upwards. And that's a super big issue. We're looking to see, so we look in more developed ecosystems and we see that it's a combination of public support, public money with corporate money. And we're at the point where we're trying to funnel this in Romania as well. But we're super far away from making it happen. So it might be just that it should be all managed by a fund, and that makes sense. It might just be co-working, and then you have the co-working to be able to sustain it all. But yeah, I'm super curious.
So I then want to ask, like, you asked why and what's the business case, right? So I actually have a question like, why we are doing this, right? Is it like to make some VCs richer? Is it to sell like event tickets or to sell the desk space? No, right? It's probably for the startups, right? The main why is like for the startups, and why them? Because they are the ones who can create solutions for the future, right? That's kind of the higher goal of all of us having jobs and conversation here, right? That's like the main goal is help and support the startups and the people and the scientists who can create solutions for the future that will solve some issues. So I think that's the business case.
Just to add on to that, maybe, I mean, it's also to increase the attractiveness of the region for outside funding.
Yes, exactly.
Removing some of the barriers and the complexities of doing business in a fragmented ecosystem present, right? So if we want to be philosophical and say, yes, we should promote this region, let's hope we don't need wars as the reason to collaborate, right? But that's the question really, is who's going to pull it all together? Because I'm not hearing that there's any association of co-working spaces. I'm not hearing that there's an alliance of ecosystem builders where you get together and provide policy recommendations to individual governments or at a EU level. Who's going to manage and drive it outside of their busy daily jobs running your own local ecosystem businesses?
Probably not. They don't have time. That's why we have ecosystem organizations who kind of service, right? Like they're like serving the startup needs. I would then say that what we call like CEE region is very wide, and the difference between them mentioned like Estonia and, for example, just a random country in the Balkans, Albania, right, is like very far away. So the needs in each of those ecosystems are probably a little bit different. So it's not like United Region that everyone is on the same level, everyone has the same problems, everyone,
This is exactly the problem.
Yeah, but it's not a problem. Like, it's okay, those who have the similar problems will find a way to collaborate and solve them. And if there is no access to capital, then we're looking for how we can invite like more investors. Investors who need good startups will look where the talent is and will go there. There are a lot of things that happen naturally.
Jordan?
I'm going to say something disappointing. I really don't think it's going to happen. I believe that local ecosystems will foster and they will develop on their own, but local interest will always like override regional interest. That's the nature of business and politics.
Micah?
I wouldn't say it's not gonna happen. I'm disagreeing again with you. It's not gonna happen tomorrow or in a year or in 3 years. But I agree with the fact that it's probably not gonna happen for all the countries that are in the CEE region, but there can be like smaller associations with the countries that have something together or something in common, like, I don't know, V4, Baltic countries, Balkan countries. I don't know, I ran out of ideas, but you know what I mean? Like, and that eventually in 10 years' time can maybe lead to something more unified than we know today.
So you asked for a practical approach. We're right now at the point where we're figuring out our own Romanian association. So that's good progress. And we even managed to get the funding from the EU to make that happen. And somewhat part of the mission of this Romanian Startup Association is to be better connected with the other communities. So we managed to figure this one out, and hopefully that's going to turn into making sure that we stay connected with the other ecosystems. But in terms of having a higher overall entity that's going to be helping the enablers, there are some European level associations, but that's, yeah, they don't reach out that much in CEE. They don't end up in CEE too much. You have no mic anymore.
I'll be really brief. I agree that it will not happen for a very long time, but there are countries that have very connected ecosystems and they are working on governmental changes, and they do invite people from countries like Estonia that these changes are to support and help. But you know, changing governments, I mean, Jordan, you said you worked, so you know how difficult and lengthy that is. So for that, we also have, like you said, the European part, but until on the local basis everything is aligned, we cannot make it happen. And you will ask the question. And I will be like very, you know, I like finishing my coaching sessions. I don't like the we and let's finalize. I would like, if we here, and it's like 25 hours a year, if I dedicate 5 hours to each of their ecosystems of my mentoring and they do this to mine, there are ecosystems that are a little bit more connected. So yeah, I'm giving them 5 hours each.
So I have a question. So there is no Western European startup association, right? Like, it's not that there is some club association where there is like Germany, France, and I don't know, UK, right? Like, we yesterday heard from a guy, like, he's like, I'm from Bavaria, I'm not from Germany. So like, there is a country that is fragmented. So I think it's more to do with, but if you would ask like, which part of the world you are, they would say Western Europe, right? I think that's much to do with your identity. And when we go, let's say, to US, then, for example, then we are like, yeah, I'm from CEE region and there are other countries and I'm just example of how like good and talented people are, and there is more of us.
Okay, so I see an opportunity. So you go. Okay, Peter's going to talk about it. I'm going to see an opportunity for all you future entrepreneurs out there. You're going to have to engage with an extremely complex and fragmented scenario but there's definitely sounds like there's a problem to be solved if you can figure out the business case to integrate the various CEE ecosystems or wider European ecosystem. So Peter, just a quick introduction. Kovac Peter is one of the co-founders of the Central Eastern European Startup Awards, which was mentioned a few times. He is also the main brain behind the people who are sitting on the panel. So all of these people who are taking time out of their busy ecosystem building and investing days are here thanks to Peter, and he wants to add a perspective.
Well, thanks. I just have a very strong opinion that was not raised up, because I have always been really looking at these. So you've been talking about countries, but not cities. But I think at the end of the day, this game is not about countries, it's about cities. Look at your own, Romania. If you think about Bucharest and Timișoara, you don't like each other that much, right? So that's my, or talking about Poland, when you think about Warsaw and I don't know, Dansk, it's not really about the strong collaborations. So talking about Bratislava and Vienna, practically, as I said, Bratislava is a suburb of Vienna, right? So if we don't approach it from the country perspective, but the city perspective, Ljubljana, come on, everything is just in 1 hour, right? Oh, Graz is very close, Zagreb is very close, and so on and so forth. Trieste is very close. So the perspective I'm trying to bring in is, maybe it's not really about the collaboration between countries, but different cities. And I leave you alone with that idea.
So basically, you've just thrown a bomb into the conversation and then run away. At the end, well, we have questions from the audience, yes. So we do need to kind of move towards wrapping it up. I want to open it up to the audience. So hands up if you have a question on this complex topic. And if we have another question over here again. You're very active today.
I just would like to comment on what Peter said about the cities. I just have to introduce myself. I'm David from Hungary, Budapest. I'm representing the MCC. There are going to be elections in some days, and there is a candidate who is actually saying in his program that he would like to make Budapest a good city for startups and wants to compete with other cities like Tallinn or Warsaw, and in this prospect he sees the future of the city, and so it quite appears in politics as well. It was just a comment, not a question actually, but yeah.
Any questions from the audience? Wow, this is a topic that's obviously. Oh, we have a question over here.
I'm Judith, thank you for the panel. My question is not in a city level, but within a city level, because what I saw that sometimes there are different startup associations, groups within the city competing with each other. So I was wondering during your panel, how can we cooperate if we cannot even cooperate with each other within the country, within the city?
Just a quick answer, since I have the mic. It's also a case of Bratislava, which is not even a million people city. Like, we have a huge co-working there. We ourselves also have like a smaller co-working space. Then there are like smaller communities and so on and so forth. Like, the main thing you need to do is put your ego aside, like forget you have one. Because when we did that and when people started doing it, that was the moment we were able to actually sit behind one table and talk about like, okay, let's not be a competition, let's do something for the ecosystem, and let's not, because at the end of the day, no one was making a profit out of the activities that they were doing. The only vision of each entity was to somehow support the startup ecosystem. So we sat down, we talked about it, and now we support each other publicly as well. So
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we need to also understand that competitiveness, because it usually comes, they all apply for the same public grants. So they literally, when they apply, at least this is the case in Slovenia, when they apply, they're literally, you have 5 different organizations that want to have the same piece of pie, and this is when the competitiveness comes from. But you need to overcome that, like you said, it's like very simple stuff. You know, you say, okay, I have this kind of speaker, and the workshop that costs that amount of per day, but if we do it all 5 together, we have a lot of people in the room, an awesome event, and we can cut the costs in half. It's like very practical, very simple, but as long as they think that they're all competing for the same budget, it will always be a competition. But as soon as you start understanding that you can make so much more out of it if you join forces for the sake of your ecosystem, then you overcome that. But then again, of the people that run this local.
Or you can co-apply for the money. That's also an option.
And it also depends on why are they doing it? What's the why behind it? Because if they're in it for the, let's say, right reasons or the bigger scope of the ecosystem, then collaboration should be on the table. If it's not, then it's always going to be a competition on who gets the resources and who does the execution. We don't have that, being from Timișoara, which is a village-ish kind of a city. We don't have that in terms of local, but we have outsiders that come and somehow tackle the ecosystem from a similar perspective, but not wanting to collaborate. So it's about putting all of this on the table. And at the end of the day, one of the sayings in the startup world is we're all in this together. So it should be about that.
I like the term competition. So that's when you know that you work for one goal, you still compete, but you keep that goal in mind. And that's, you need that. You need that, you know, like every movie, you need that friend who is actually your enemy, but is actually your friend. You're so long time enemies that you become friends. So you kind of need someone who pushes you. And that we saw like this year in Riga, like talking about public funds, like last year there was like maybe 15 activities that were applied for our support program. And as I said, like there was like some 5 hackathons, and in reality, who needs 5 hackathons, right? Probably not, that's not the main thing that will solve all the problems. This year there was like 32 activities, and you can see the quality going up. Like, and some of those who got last year didn't get it because they just were not on the level of the new applicants. So that will hopefully mean that the next year there will be even better ones, because they were like, oh, okay, last year we didn't get it, so we need to improve. So everything goes like up, like, and improve, like to this competition.
I'm going to have to call it there, Magdi, because it looks like we've opened up more discussions than we've actually answered. And we're not going to solve this problem today. It's highly complex. We did put it on the table today. I'm not sure I heard an answer. I can hear lots of philosophical agreement, but I'm not sure I hear the business case, and I'm not sure I can get the what's in it for me as a region, apart from... Well, Magda, do you have the magic answer? Because you can close it now if you can solve the problem.
No, I wanted to refer to the framework perspective that we are missing here, because I've read like 2 days ago a startup manifesto before European election. Have you read that? No? From the CEE region. So the startup manifesto was about that give voice to startup in the European institutes. Organize something startup oriented, like not business, SMEs, but startup, yeah? So I think, and this, my other reflection is the easiest way how we can collaborate, for example, in Poland, while competing on a daily basis. The easiest way when it is super easy for me to have those 20-something people in one room immediately is when we wanna something together from policymakers. Yeah. So, and this creates these fundamentals that we need to create this business. And that's all my.
Sounds like there's a gap in the market for somebody to make quite a big name for themselves if they address this challenge. So, I mean, I want to thank you all. It was a difficult topic. It's clear that we can see that we're not reaching the full potential. Whether it happens, whether it doesn't, whether it's a question of time, I don't know. But it all seems that we agree we should collaborate. Question is how and what's the business case. So thank you to the panel. Thank you to the audience. And I don't know, Noemi Zoltan, anybody closing words, or shall we just wrap it up? Well, then, thank you very much for your participation today. I've been left to close it. Great. Thank you.